My name is Drew Turner, and this is the Demonstrative speech. Now, how many of you have like a summer project, something you want to get done over the summer? If maybe you have free time from work, downtime on the weekends, or maybe you're a student who's just home for the summer and doesn't really have much to do if you don't have a job, or even if you have time away from that job. Now, if you are, I have an idea that you might be interested in, and what I'm talking about is this step stool I have with me right here. Now, I made this back in 10th grade when I was a sophomore in high school, and I'm still using it now as a sophomore in college. Now, before you even start thinking about making that type of project, you're going to need to know where to buy the materials and what you're going to need, kind of some of the basic steps on how to make it, and then of course some uses for it after it's been built. Now, when you start thinking about building this step stool, you're going to need some of the basic things. You're going to need nails, screws, wood glue, maybe some putty for a little bit later when you're building it, sandpaper, and then probably a saw to cut the wood, of course, and then the paint for the top of it. Now, to get these materials, you can just go down to like your local hardware store, maybe Lowe's, Home Depot, or Menards, and then, or maybe you even have like a local hardware store that you go to that's close to your house. Now, hopefully you already have the hammer and maybe an electric screwdriver at home if you are still living with your parents, but if not, you will have to get those. And then for the nails and screws, probably only about 2 inches for each, because you don't want them to go all the way through the wood or to be too big that you notice them as soon as you look at the step stool. And then just regular wood glue to help hold together, and then some putty to cover up some holes or mistakes. Sandpaper just kind of like make it so wood's not so rough, so you can handle it more easy. And then that's about it. And then hopefully you can get the wood cut there, because sometimes they do that. But if not, you can easily just bring home like a handsaw. None of the cuts are very hard at all. And then one thing that you might think of is talk to someone there that's in the hardware department. Tell them kind of what the project you're making. Maybe they have some advice for you to help you along. So once you have everything, now you're just kind of at home like, well, what do I do now? And here are some like the basic things that we did when I was back in school. So you're going to want to start with each base right here, and you're going to want to measure about 1 inch in on each side and about 4 inches up, and you're going to want to cut these arches in it, and then just kind of sand it down so it's a little bit smoother. And then after that, you're just going to want to finish off the base by these pieces up here on the top. You're just going to need one piece of wood and cut them in half, but of course make sure they're the same length so the base isn't uneven. And then what we did was we glued them in first on each side, and then we left it there for a little bit so the wood would dry, and then we nailed it on each side as well. And now this is where the putty would come in, because we nailed it all the way in because the screw heads were not very big, and then we just puttied over them and then sanded it down so you can barely tell that those nail marks were there. And then of course, before you put on the last piece of base over here, you want to put this piece of wood in and then glue it and nail it as well on this side. So your base is done. And then you go to probably the tougher part of all of it is the top, because you can sand it down, and what we used in school was a plane, which kind of like shaves off pieces of wood, but you're not going to want to buy one of those because you're not going to end up using it as much. So it's easier just to sand it down right there. It's going to take a little bit longer than if you had the plane, but it's worth it because it kind of makes it look a little bit nicer. And then for the top part, for the carving, now we had a machine to do that, so you're probably not going to be able to do that unless you find like a place that will do it for you, which might be tougher and might be more expensive. So what you're going to want to do is probably carve, like trace over it with a piece of paper and then paint that in. So it's the same effect, it's just not carved. Oop. Now once you have the top done, you're going to want to turn it over and push the base down on it, and then measure about 1 inch in all around so it's even, and you're just going to need to glue it down. And that's about it for the base. Now, what we did was, just for some added support, is we glued two pieces of scrap wood inside, and you're going to want to screw those into the top just for some added support. And that's about it. You can stain it down here if you want, or do anything else with it, but that's kind of the basic steps on how we made it. Now, once you have this all built, you're like, well, what do I do now? And like I told you, I've been using it since I was a sophomore in high school. I've been using it for all sorts of things. I took it to college with me. I used it to charge my phone because sometimes I would run out of desk space at college, so I would have the stool next to me and I would just set my phone in there just so it's within arm's reach. I used it to set my laptop on it when we wanted to connect my laptop to the TV out in the living area so it was closer and it wasn't sitting on the carpet heating up. I used it as a TV stand for a little bit because my sister took the kind of dresser I was using to place it on. I've used it as a step stool probably once or twice, honestly, which is its intended purpose, but I've just found other things to use it for, and I'm sure if you build it, you will too. You'll come up with so many more daily things that you'll be able to use it for that I won't even think of. But now, once you've built it, we figured out where you can get your materials, kind of like the basic steps on how to build it, and kind of what to use it for. Now you have this summer project that you've been working on. You have this stool that you can be proud of, something that you've made, and that's just a great feeling. And now that you have done this once, don't waste your summer again. Always pick a summer project, something that you can complete and just be proud of.